What is up, guys? Today I'm going to be talking about what kind of lines that I throw for my big swim baits. So it's going to be pretty much like a basic video. I'm going to kind of go over what kind of line that I use for each situation or whichever bait that I'm throwing that day. Now to start off talking about like my HUDs or like my magnums, I'm going to be throwing 20-pound mono or 20-pound fluorocarbon. I prefer the fluorocarbon just due to the fact that it has no stretch. Now, when it comes to baits that have like a jig hook like this, you want to have as much leverage on the fish as you possibly can. So when you're fishing down there in 30 feet and a fish chokes this thing and you set the hook on that fish, you don't want any stretch at all. You want the firmest hook sets. That's why most people will use stouter rods when fishing bottom baits like the HUD. I do use 20-pound fluorocarbon just because we do fish some pretty clear lakes and we are slow rolling those baits. So the fish might see the line, like when using mono, they might be spooked just for that, especially the real giant fish. Now this is my brand new 10-inch Huddleston Deluxe swim bait. It's kind of a limited batch, but it's such a sweet looking bait. It's 10 inches long and it's pretty heavy, a lot bigger than just the 8-inch Huddleston. Now with this bait, I am still throwing 20-pound fluorocarbon. Even though it is a bigger bait and it weighs heavier, I am still have confidence in the type of fluorocarbon that I throw. Now with the fluorocarbon that I use Berkeley Trilene 100% fluorocarbon. It's done me really well. I haven't really snapped off any baits. And it's not badly priced like some of the other lines out there. It's reasonable. And a guy like me that doesn't make a whole lot of money, I'm able to go out and buy that stuff. And then I like to respool a lot, so I can always just get more line whenever I want to, really, without having to break the bank. Now onto my glide baits, like the Depths 250. For example, I'm throwing anywhere from 20-pound mono to 25-pound mono. I know some dudes like to throw these on like 30-pound mono. I think that's overkill for how light this bait really is. After throwing like a hinkle trout or a mother, you kind of understand that that bait's pretty light. Now, I will mostly fish 25-pound mono. It's strong. It's really abrasion resistant. I love throwing it. And again, it comes in spools like this. So it has a bunch of line, and again, I like to respool like every 1 to 3 trips, so I'm able to spool my reels up, quite efficiently with spools like this. Onto my hinkle trouts. This is a brand new hinkle trout that I just got from Andrew about 2 or 3 days ago. It's an incredibly beautiful bait. It was painted by Piz Customs, and the bait is made by Andrew Hinkle himself. Now this is a big glide bait. It's 11 inches long. It weighs about 9 ounces, 9.5 ounces. And so with that kind of bait, I'm just throwing 30-pound mono. This is the same Trilene big game that I showed here, that I used 20-pound mono for the Depths 250. Now I've been using this line probably for the past 2 years or so, and it's only failed me once, and now it's just kind of like a user error and not retying. Other than that, it's been really great to me on throwing those baits. I've yet to snap off my hinkle trout, and so it's done its job pretty much there. And with that line, I feel confident in throwing my bait into like really kind of sticky, messy kind of areas like trees and rocks, and I know I'm able to get a fish and my bait out of that area without breaking my line whatsoever. And then once again, I burn through line. As you guys can see, I'm almost out of that right there. I have to go pick up more here pretty soon, but it comes with a lot of line. Now, most of these bass reels, these swim bait reels, they don't hold a whole lot of 30 pounds, so I'm able to reel spool 5 trips without having to go pick up more line. And again, this line's pretty cheap. I believe it's only $6.88 over here, so I'm able to just go down to my local Walmart and pick up fresh line whenever I want to. Now on to like my top water baits, or baits that I rip through the grass like triple trouts and stuff like that. I'm throwing 65-pound braid. This is tough line braid right here. I've just picked this stuff up and it's actually really great. I've used this pitching and flipping, and then I said, why not just throw it on some swim bait stuff? And I did, and it's held up really well. I'm able to cut through a lot of grass that I was fishing earlier this fall, and it cut through grass incredibly well, and I was able to bring up mounds and mounds of grass that I would hook and not fear for my life when, if I would lose my bait or not. And so this is just Tough Line Force. It's their new line. They just came out with this stuff. They also have a few other lines that they're making right now that I've gotten my hands on, and so far I love it. And this is definitely a go-to. This is 65-pound braid. Just because I am fishing heavy grass and big swim baits, so I like to go with the heavier line with that. And with this line, it's actually fairly reasonably cheap for braid. And so again, I'm able to go out and just pick up this line and respool as much as I want. Even though I don't really have to respool as much with this braid, just because it's actually lasts pretty long. The strength in it lasts for quite some trips, so I'm not forced to like respool, you know, like every 3 trips or so. I go 7 to 8 trips and then I'll respool, which is kind of a big deal when you're throwing braid, just because braid is usually more expensive than like mono.
Damn it!
Now, I use mono on my glide baits just because they are heavy baits and they have treble hooks. Now, with that being said, when I sometimes do get a fish to bite those treble hook baits, if I'm using something stiffer like braid or fluorocarbon, there is no stretch to like those 2 lines. When I do set the hook on those treble hooks, I'm not pulling the entire bait and trebles out of a fish's mouth. It does have stretch when I go to set the hook. And I think that's a major key to hooking more fish on treble hook, you know, swim baits and glide baits, is just using mono. Something that stretches, so when you do set the hook, you're not ripping the hooks out of a fish's mouth. If you guys had any questions about, you know, line, what baits, you know, to use with what kind of line, just leave the comments below. If you guys have anything really swim bait related or even fishing related, leave the comments below. I'll get back to them. I'll answer some of you guys' questions. And I hope you guys have a good rest of the year and go into 2017 just pounding and grinding away for a fish of a lifetime. And as always, chase your dreams.